Welcome to the Magenta Mix podcast. I'm your host, Gary Magenta. This is the podcast where we dig into the three elements that drive every successful organization. Purpose, that's your North Star. Strategy, the current roadmap you're using to reach that purpose. And culture, that's your jet fuel or your accelerant to get there faster. In each episode, we talk with leaders who are shaping their organization in unique and meaningful ways by focusing on these three critical success factors. Today, I'm joined by Adriene McCoy, Senior Vice President and Chief People Officer at Baptist Health South Florida. Adriene leads one of the most respected HR organizations in healthcare and has spent more than 25 years aligning people and strategy with business. Welcome to this episode, Adriene McCoy. Adriene, as we get started, I think it's only fair to let everybody know that I am an Adriene McCoy super fan. From the first time that I met you, I was just taken with your knowledge and your energy and your spirit, and everyone that is listening or watching to us should know that they are in the company of greatness with you. So thank
Oh,
you again for being here.
thank you so much, Gary. The feeling's mutual.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think it would be really helpful if you could just kick us off with an overview of Baptist Health South Florida. Think about things like sharing with us your mission and a little bit about the culture and your role in all of that.
Sure, thank you. So I work for Baptist Health South Florida. It's a health system in Miami-Dade, Broward County, Fort Lauderdale area, Palm Beach, if you can think about those areas in South Florida. We have about 12 hospitals, over 100 outpatient centers, primary care offices, and so forth. Our mission and vision for the organization is we really want to be the place that people instinctively turn to for their health care. Just the minute you think about getting something done, we want Baptist Health to be that organization that you trust, that you will turn to, and we try to be everywhere we can be, and we try to meet your needs as much as we possibly can. From a cultural perspective, we try to be very high touch, very service oriented. Our core is we want to be welcoming, regardless of whether or not you're a patient, a family member, or a staff member. Our logo is the pineapple, a symbol of hospitality, and we feel as though we should be living up to that.
Yeah, my background started in hospitality, so I'm very familiar with the pineapple. This idea of welcoming and sort of my summary of what you said is first choice of those
Absolutely.
in your community. To me, that really requires people. So the logo can be great, the facility can be beautiful, but it comes down to your team members and how they're engaging with your community. Does that sound right to you?
That's right, on target. That's what we talk about. Our CEO has said in the past, people don't call him to say how great the buildings are, how great the equipment is, but they can't stop talking about the people. And when you interact with individuals in the community, they talk about the experiences they had at Baptist Health because of the people, not just the care. The care is critically important, but we try to do it with a certain amount of focus on making you feel good at one of the most challenging times of your life.
Yeah. So what in order to do that, in order to make that connection, to make people feel good at the most challenging times of their life or the happiest if they're having babies, I'm assuming,
Right, right.
things like this. What is your people strategy? How do you go about engaging your people to deliver that and deliver it consistently, which I think is one of the keys?
Sure. It starts with setting very clear expectations for performance up front, but also hiring the right people. It's very difficult to say you want to be the instinctive choice and then not invest in your staff to make it very clear of what the expectation is for meeting the needs. You know, walking down the hallway and seeing someone that looks lost and offering to walk them
Yeah.
to where they need to go. Answering calls within a certain number of rings, responding to people when they're looking for care, when they're interested in engaging with the organization. So it really starts, frankly, with leadership, not just executive leadership, but our leaders here are held to a very high standards in terms of how they engage their teams, their patients, the families. So we talk about leadership competencies. How do we want leaders to perform? How do we want them to inspire and motivate their teams? Because we know that if we have highly engaged employees, they're going to do their best work, not just what they're required to do, but they will put forth discretionary effort and they will delight our patients. We have been honored by Fortune magazine and the Great Place to Work for 25 years, being one of the best companies to work for in the country. And that happens because of our investments in engagement, leadership development, dealing with people issues quickly for the benefit of delivering that great care. So we're very proud of that. We've been recognized. We provide not just an annual engagement survey, we do several pulse surveys just to help leaders understand how are you engaging your team, and also for executive leadership to see whether or not there are challenges based on how employees view the organization at large, the decisions that are being made, and the growth.
So there's a few key things that I just want to pull out of what you said. You started with the foundation is we have to hire the right people to start.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
The second thing I heard you said that I just love, given my work with leaders, is that your leaders are really held to a high standard on how they set the example and demonstrate to others what good looks like. Did I get that right?
You got that. You got that right. And when we have leaders that have engagement issues, we take action. We try to work alongside them. We try to pair them with leaders that have very high engagement. And then, unfortunately, there are some situations where leaders may have been good individual contributors or good practitioners, but they're not so great at leadership. And there may be a situation where you have to have someone go back to a staff role, and we don't see that as failure. We see that as having the right people in the right seats at the right time.
Sure. It's interesting because what my experience and research tells me is that what makes you a great individual contributor does not make you a great leader. As you said, they're
That's right.
actually two different skills. A
Right.
great individual contributor is responsible for bringing the best of themselves to work, and a great leader is responsible for bringing out the best in others.
Absolutely.
And it
Absolutely.
requires a whole different mindset and different skill set.
Yeah.
I love the idea of this discretionary effort is the key. So I just want to help our viewers with this value chain. Hire the right people, give
Hmm.
them the right leader who will demonstrate what good looks like
Right.
to ensure that they're engaged, which oftentimes leads to their willingness to bring their discretionary effort,
That's right. That's
and that
right.
that shows up in the patient experience in your case.
Absolutely. I mean, you always want people doing more than just what they're required to do, not just for the benefit of the work, but also for the benefit of the individual. People are very proud when they go the extra mile and they get recognized for it, right?
For sure.
A lot of our employees, and this is true of healthcare in general, a lot of people got into healthcare not by accident, but because they wanted to contribute to the care of individuals in their community. And I was sharing recently on Friday, we had our HR leadership summit, our HR summit with our entire HR team. And, if you pulse on how many employees have either been cared for by Baptist Health or had friends or family cared for by Baptist Health, we really want to be the organization that you can trust the care of those loved ones to us, and we're going to take care of your family as if it's our family.
For sure.
And that really resonates with people just from wanting to be a part of it, because you never want to work for an organization that you don't have pride in, that you don't feel comfortable that you don't have colleagues that share both the values of the organization and your values. For many people in healthcare, it's more than just a job. It's
Yeah,
really a calling
it's a higher
and
calling.
purpose.
Sure.
And
Yes.
that's what we connect to. That's what causes people to be drawn to our organization and want to be here for quite a while.
So I fully attach to this idea of you're in a business that if you don't have a higher calling, your days can get long and difficult.
Yes.
Yeah, they're long and difficult anyway.
Right.
You talk about pride and comfort and shared values. Can you just connect that back to the culture that you've created and how you engage people in those values, in that culture, what pride looks like in
Right.
order for them to be able to want to fulfill their higher calling with you?
Sure. So several years ago, we took our values like people and compassion, integrity, and transparency. We took those values and we didn't take them for granted. Sometimes you have values and people might see them at orientation, but nobody ever really talks about them unless they're on a wall somewhere. So, what we decided to do was to have a year-long strategy of really leaning into our values, making sure everybody knew what they were. We took over 20,000 people and had them go through a common experience of understanding where the organization is going operationally, what some of the challenges are that we're facing, and how our strategies to address what's going well and what's an opportunity was really founded, really connected to our core values for the organization. So, as we were moving forward with these strategies, people would understand why it was happening. And after we did that, so you'd go to a 4 hour session, but then after that, for an entire year, we provided leaders with information to be able to have conversations on a monthly basis with their teams. So we might spend a month talking about compassion in our department and think about what does compassion mean in the emergency department versus what does compassion mean in the dietary department? What does compassion mean in the payroll department? And
You're individualizing it, personalizing.
right, we're individualizing it by department and helping people resonate with these are not just words that we're putting on a wall. And then in tandem with that, we recognize people who recognized others for living the values. And it became a badge of honor, literally, to be walking around with a badge of a value, and to be in the running for some other type of prize. We called it the Golden Pineapple Award, and people truly loved it. And it's still going on today. We've got thousands of nominations for that, but you really have to be very intentional about taking these ideals and weaving them into daily conversation so people know you're serious about it. Our CEOs at the various hospitals brought it into their town hall conversations, and it really helped those that came to our organization because of the core values feel like, okay, I'm really in the right place. I'm in a place that really aligns with how I want to do the work and what the intended impact of the work is as well.
Yeah. I think you gave us a really good piece recipe here. There's some secret sauce here. You started out by saying we brought everybody together to
Yes,
help them understand um, our strategies. The
right.
big, my interpretation of what you just said is we gave everybody the big picture of what's going on
That's
and
right.
what's our strategy or strategies to respond to that big picture. And then you added, and here are the values we'll live to enact those strategies.
Right.
And this is a step that I think many people are missing. They'll, as you said, put the poster of the values up. I call it values wallpaper.
Right.
And because you forget that it's there. You just keep passing it by.
Right.
You're talking about something here that I think could be very helpful for those that are listening, and that we always have to start with the big picture and engage our team members as if they're smart, because they are.
That's right.
They'll
That's right.
understand these things. We hired smart people. Let's appeal to their highest level of thinking.
That's right.
And so, sharing the big picture of what's going on with our organization, what's going on in the world around us, and what our strategy is a perfect starting place so that people have context for why are our values important and where am I applying those values.
That's right. That's right.
So then the other thing I just want to highlight again is you said you prepared your leaders for a year long conversation. Here's one of the things that I have found really interesting, Adrienne. Just because we've been promoted into a leadership role doesn't
Mhm.
mean we know what to say.
That's right. That's right.
So I'm assuming that the conversations you gave them some sort of preparation, like a guide or some inspiration
Absolutely.
talking point.
Absolutely. We created the words. We sent you a communication deck that you could click through. Obviously, you want to inspire impromptu conversation as well with your team and give them an opportunity to weigh in and have dialogue amongst each other, but we provided the prompts, we provided the overview. So if you were a leader here, you literally got every other month an email that went out. We also provided, in addition to the deck that you would receive, we would have a call, a training call, where if you wanted to get on the call, you had questions about what you were presenting, whether or not it might be appropriate to bring up certain things. We allowed leaders to come online and provided them some support in order to do that, because some leaders are really good at it. Other leaders might be new, may not understand, may not be good communicators. So we gave you the tools, but we also gave them the support to have their questions asked. If they needed additional information, if they didn't understand it, we needed to make them ready to stand in front of their teams and have that dialogue.
Yeah, you're very smart to do that. There is this assumption, as I mentioned before, that leaders automatically know what it is that they should say or how they should
Right,
say it. Some years ago, when I was doing a publication on leadership, I did a survey that asked leaders what was preventing them from engaging their teams in things like strategy, values, etc. What was preventing them to do it? Well, their first response was they said time. They didn't have time.
right,
And I recognized that I needed to redo the survey to ask, outside of time, what is holding you back from
right,
engaging your team in the most strategic conversations? The number one answer was, I don't know what to say.
right, right,
Was the number the amalgamy of it was, I don't know what to say. And that really, I think, is surprising for some people, especially the most senior leaders. They say, well, they're a manager, of course they
right.
should know. Just because the badge says it doesn't mean that they have all the words. So I'm so glad that you did that. When you think about how the world and your business is evolving so quickly, right? You have regulatory, you have financial, you have, things like COVID that are just the unexpected out of left field. I find that most organizations have to continue to evolve their leaders and their leaders'
That's
behaviors
right.
to support that evolution of business and events. What does that look like for you? How are your leaders evolving, and how is your culture evolving to meet the challenges that are coming about? And I'm
Right.
thinking again specifically funding, regulatory, those sort of things.
Yeah, I think one thing we've learned over the last 3 to 5 years is that change management and agility are both critical in order to maintain the level of service and output that you need. And when we look at our leadership competencies, that we ask our leaders to try to do their best to be as competent in these particular areas as they could possibly be. we know that we have to evolve those competencies along with where the organization is going, where the industry is going. So, really taking an approach of always looking at, are we doing everything that we can to position our leaders for success? Whether it's development, whether it's outlining expectations, whether it is supporting them with new tools, new resources. We're constantly looking at that because depending on the quarter, you have some anticipated challenges. Like you mentioned, regulatory COVID was something that certainly caught everybody off guard. And thankfully, we're well onto the other side of that. But there are other challenges and questions about the future, particularly as you're trying to grow, as you're trying to compete, where we need our leaders to be open to learn, open to develop, open to change, open to changes even in their team's demographics, and making sure that with technology and everything else that we're challenged with, I'll give you as an example. In September, we had a leadership summit, and the goal of that summit was twofold. It was number one, to ask leaders to be open to technology improvements in AI. And number two, to remind them that regardless of the technology that we have, we're in a human touch business. We are always focused on the humanity of ourselves, of our patients. So, how do you balance that? How do you balance both of those objectives, being innovative and advancing in what you can offer the patients in terms of an experience and access, while still understanding that each human being is an individual and needs to be seen and heard, whether it's staff, patients, or families. So it's become a little bit more of a dynamic conversation with leaders to understand that, yes, things are changing rapidly, much more than they have in the past, but being agile, being open to change management. I know some people don't like that term, but it's the world that we're living in. Things are progressing pretty rapidly, and the organization has a very strong growth trajectory in the market. So we want our leaders to be along for the ride and actually be excited about it, and feeling as though, even though they and their teams may be learning new skills, positions may change, different things may change, they can still be a part of a phenomenal organization and live their own purpose.
Yeah, the key word in everything that you just said that I wrote down an asterisk in my notepad is open. There
Yes,
are so many times that leaders are get that role, get that title, and it's like, I've arrived, I can now sort of
right.
settle in. When it may seem counterintuitive to some, that's the time that you have to start to make the biggest changes.
That's right.
And this idea of open, and continuously developing your leadership is really important, because the next generation of worker is the one that you have to relate to most. And
That's
you
right.
most be the most and may have the most distance between you and them career wise. You have
Right.
to know what they're thinking, how are they thinking, how they view technology, what they're using.
That's right.
And that requires you to constantly be learning.
And
And
it's different. It's different for people. I always try to explain from a change management perspective. Sometimes when people resist change, it's because they have become an expert in something, and it is their identity. They're comfortable with it. They wake up, they know exactly what to do. And sometimes when things are changing, it becomes a threat. All of a sudden, you might take me from an expert to a novice, and I'm not sure I can get back to expert again. So, when you're talking about change management, you have to walk alongside individuals and give them the confidence, the tools, the knowledge to be able to get to that expert level again. That's what I think becomes that defense mechanism of, don't change anything. I finally figured out how to do this.
Well, there's also a mindset. I'll see your reaction to this if you agree with this or not. What I'll oftentimes tell leaders in a coaching or consulting, if I'm consulting or coaching them, is yesterday's leader believed they needed to have all of the answers.
Right,
Today's leader has to have the right questions.
right,
And so I understand this feeling like I'm an expert here. Now I'm being challenged and I have to learn again. For
right,
some people, that's very exciting. For others, it's daunting, overwhelming. And for others,
right,
it puts them in retirement, right? I'm out.
right, right.
I'm going to a new job. And I'm just curious your thoughts on leaders not having to know all of the answers, but leaning in with curiosity and the right questions and being on a path of discovery as opposed to, I know it, I'm going to tell it to you. There's a mindset that I believe in that says, well, let's discover it together. Let's go
That's
figure it
right. That's right. You're absolutely right. You don't have to have all of the answers. You need to know where to find them if the questions do come up, and you need to be curious. You need to be curious. Need to ask a lot of questions, and you also need to hire people who complement the expertise that you may not have. When you think about it, it really should be you and your team together helping to co-create whatever the next thing might be, or the next response to a challenge. You really get a lot of benefit. You don't have to be everything to all people. You don't have to be the one that knows everything. Nobody knows everything all the time. You're going to be in a situation sometimes where you are asked a question and you'll say, I don't know that right now, but I'll have to get back to you. There's no shame in that. The shame is in giving the wrong answer and then being found out, later that you were just off the cuff. But really just being open to greater knowledge, being curious, having a team that you're listening to, that you're pulsing things with to try to get to that solution, I think is the best scenario.
Adrienne, you are, my perception is that you're in a very lucky spot, that you have a very full voice in your organization. You're heard.
Right.
When I talk to a lot of HR people, and oftentimes that's my entree into an organization, the first question they'll ask is, how do I get my voice heard? I
Mhm.
know what we need to do to grow our leaders or engage our people, but it doesn't seem to be a priority. In our last minute or two here, do you have some advice for those who don't have either your strength or conviction or the good fortune of the leadership team you work with on how they can get heard by those leaders?
I think it starts with, frankly, Gary, building relationships when you don't need to use them. Part of influence is really connecting with people and having them understand who you are, what you're about, what matters to you, and then being curious about what matters to them. A lot of things that I have been able to get done with leaders, with executives, is because of what I just described. Um, if I only talk to the people that had something that I wanted to get a piece of, I'd never get anything done. If people knocked on the door and wanted to talk to me, I had the hand up, I'm too busy, I excluded people, I didn't seem interested in helping anyone. People would be surprised the amount of out of um, meeting time that needs to be spent getting to know people so that when you come into the room and you are presenting something, people first have trust in you before they have trust in what you're presenting. Because otherwise, you're a stranger with information that I may or may not have an interest in. But you want to be the kind of leader, regardless of the role that you're in, that people pay attention because you are the one presenting it. Doesn't mean you're going to get everything that you ask for. Doesn't mean that everybody's going to agree with you and how you move about the organization. But at the end of the day, if you are not working to curate those relationships, those conversations, those um, mutually beneficial team connections, just for the purpose of being a great colleague. And then once you show up and you are trying to be heard, make sure you've done your research.
Yeah.
Make sure you've anticipated every question. Make sure that you have been thoughtful about how does the organization benefit from what I'm presenting?
Yeah.
Or is it just about me being able to get a win?
Well, you've said, there's a reason why you and I get on so well. You said a few key things that I advise as well. I just want to repeat them. First is you have to build a relationship. And from where I stand, relationships happen one conversation at a time.
Right.
Go
That's
have
right.
those informal conversations to build the relationship. And then this one of the second big ones there is you have to be curious about what's important to that other person
Right.
before they're going to be curious with you, or if you want to open up their curiosity to you. So build the relationship, be curious about what's important to them first, and you will start to build that relationship where you can influence and be heard.
That's right.
Yeah. Adrienne, we're going to have to leave it there. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to come back very soon and talk to us all. Thank you so much for sharing your
Thank you.
wisdom and your spirit with all of us today. It's always my pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, and I'll come anytime.
All right. See you soon. Thanks again.
Thank you.